today we're going to be talking about optimizing your health, wealth, and relationships at CxXchange SuccessHour. And we have Divya Apte and myself co-leading this session. And it was really inspired by Divya, really, when we were discussing how to optimize. I was thinking it was optimizing your calendar. And then we just kind of realized it was much more than that. So Divya, for those who may not know you, why don't you just briefly share a little bit about yourself so they kind of have an idea of kind of what you're up to and how you came upon this.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock in California. So I am Divya Apte. I just recently started a new job myself. I'm going into the second week. I'm now the VP of Client Experience at an AI native startup called StartStack. So that's super exciting. I'm knee deep in learning about not just the processes, but the product itself, because we're trying to push this out to market relatively soon. And so just dealing with all the technical aspects of understanding the product. It's taking me a while, but really excited because I get to leverage my project management, product management, and also customer success experience. So it's kind of all rolling into one. So excited about that. Yeah, so as Jan mentioned, I actually found this CEO influencer, if you will, on LinkedIn. His name is Eric Partaker. And he is a CEO coach, and he has all of this great content on LinkedIn about how to optimize yourself, even if you're not a CEO or a founder, on getting the most out of your day. And so there's this ebook that you get for free when you sign up to get his newsletter, and it's called The 3 Alarms. And it's very much this guide to how to get peak performance out of your everyday life. And it focuses on 3 key areas of your life, which is your health, your wealth, and your relationships. And the idea is, yeah, the link is up there. And the idea is for you to be able to create the system so that you're not necessarily viewing these as habits, but it's more of you creating a new version of yourself so that all of these habits that you want to break in order to get better will actually be seen as behavior changes. And those will actually be more sticky in the long run. So,
just to that point, in terms of the resources, that's also similar to kind of what James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, which is one of the books we read in our book club. Actually, it was the first book we read. And that's just something to think about. So it's really when you start to identify yourself as, I am a person who works out. I am a person who is healthy. I am a person who, you know, whatever it is what some sort of, you know, habit or thing that you want to do, right? But I think what's I thought was interesting about the ebook that Divya read and applied in sort of a more sort of dramatic way, more impactful way, is that it's also thinking about the balance in your life. And I thought that that was really interesting, right? So when you think about, you know, the 3 legs of a stool, when you're thinking about your health, your wealth, which might be, you know, your work or, you know, what other things you're doing, you know, in a professional sense, and your relationships with family, friends, and your professional network, right? That when you have the 3 of them in balance, then you've got a stool you can actually sit on that's a good foundation, right? But if they're not in balance, you're not going to be in balance, right? And so I thought that that was really instructive and interesting about that. And I thought that, you know, there are ways in which I think he, as well as when you're looking at Atomic Habits, looking at sort of, you know, procrastination and other forms of self-sabotage, right? And ways that the messages you tell yourself. And that's where you get into the identity too, right? That it's what you tell yourself, the messages you tell yourself in your head, right? If you turn that into a positive message, if instead of I'm bad at names, you know, if you say, I can't remember names, I can't remember names yet, right? Things like that, that you can kind of start to turn around what you're doing here. And then I thought it was also interesting, Divya, I'm sure you'll be talking about, but the stress for looking for roles, right? That if you're, whether you're in a stressful job at the time and you might be feeling overwhelmed, maybe you're in the first 6 months of your role, or maybe there are things changing at work, or if you're looking for a new role, these stressors, right? And how do you handle those? So that's kind of what we wanted to sort of dig into. And I'm going to hand it back over to you, Divya, to speak through some of these things
Sure.
and the impact it had on you.
Yeah. So if we can just step back a minute and just talk about what it means to have a balanced life, right? I mean, I would love to hear some people, if you guys want to come off mute and just tell me, when you hear the words balanced life, what does that mean to you? Just real quick. I can't see everyone, so.
Time for all of those things, right? Time for dedicating time to your personal life, to your professional life, and to your spiritual life.
Yep, that's right. So for me, balanced life means feeling in control, right? And not feeling overwhelmed by all of these different things that that was just mentioned, right? I'm sorry, I don't know who mentioned it, even if I can't see.
Christine.
Oh, okay, hi, Christine.
Yeah.
And so it's basically being able to handle all these different parts of your life without feeling like stressed out or burned out, right? But why do some of these things not last? Have you actually thought about that? I mean, you're always sort of, making these habits, right? Like, oh, I want to exercise more. In my case, I want to drink 80 ounces of water every single day. And a lot of times, within a few days, I go back to not drinking enough water, right? Or not exercising enough. And the reason for that is because when we try to change these specific habits, we're not actually correlating those changes to who we want to be in real life, right? To your own self-identity, to my own self-identity. I'm not relating those two things. And so anytime I try to make a change, it feels very temporary and it feels very forced. And so that's the notion of having something called this identity-based change, which is this huge concept that's talked about in Eric's book. And it's a similar concept that I think Atomic Habits also talks about. Mm-hmm. So instead of actually changing a particular habit, you want to approach this as focusing on changing who you believe you are, right? So that's the key thing here. So instead of thinking like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed, instead say, I am someone that feels calm and organized, right? So now as soon as you think those words, calm and organized, what does that mean to you, right? So all of these different behaviors now that you're going to associate with who you want to be as a calm and organized person, such as, okay, all these things that will reduce my stress, things that will get me to become more productive. These are the changes then that if you apply over and over again, and you're again connecting them back to who you want to be, which is this calm and organized person, those will become more sticky in the long run, right? And those are not just habits anymore. So now you're sort of creating what we call this heroic version of yourself, right? And so the more you repeat a certain behavior, the more you sort of become this identity that you're associating with it, right? Well, so that's the concept of the 3 alarms.
And I noticed over in the chat, I think Pam mentioned that, the idea of wealth is a hard one to deal with when you're looking for work. But you actually started to use this system while you were looking for work, right, Divya? And so I thought it was interesting in how it helped you to compartmentalize and balance your life by kind of setting up your system. So why don't we go through these 3 alarms to give some context for folks?
Yeah, so for achieving a balanced life, a lot of people say that these are your 3 key pillars, right, that you want to tackle. So that's your health, your wealth, and your relationships. And so when it comes to health, again, and the notion of the 3 alarms is you basically take your phone and then you set 3 specific alarms in your day, right? And the first alarm, when it goes off, you're going to basically be focusing on the best version of yourself. So that's going to be your health. And you can call that alarm whatever you want, right? Whatever identity you associate yourself as far as the best version of you to be, that's what you're going to call the alarm, right? So while I was looking for a job, these were sort of the alarm names, if you will, that I had created for myself. So my
We
first
have this
alarm,
in the resources in the back. Yeah.
so my first alarm, all about my health, I call myself a wellness warrior, right? So that means at exactly 5 o'clock, when my alarm goes off, I see in bold letters, wellness warrior, right? And I don't say anything about, hey, exercise more right now, or go drink some more water. None of that, right? None of the negative stuff. It's wellness warrior. To that extent, it's a very positive affirmation for me. And so that gets me out of my bed. And usually what I do is I stretch, I work out, I take my dog out for a walk. On some days, and by the way, this stuff I still carry today, even after I get a job. My kids are at home now, and so they walk the dog, which means that I get to do some other work that I want to do. I actually have a nonprofit, so there's a lot of creative stuff that I also get to do in the morning, and that's like the best time, right? Because it's me time. And so I get that done as well. And then Sundays, I play a lot of sports. Pickleball is now my favorite, so I go play pickleball. But I also reflect on the week, right? So all of the different things that I've set out to do for myself, in the book, Eric calls this champion proofs. So it's all of these different habits, if you will, that you want to add into each one of these alarms and what it is that you're accomplishing every single day, these small wins. Those are what you want to review, right? And not every single week are you going to be successful, right? That's the cool thing about it. What you're trying to do is change your behavior, right? And so you want to just go for these small wins, 1 or 2 wins every single day if you can. And over time, as you're reviewing and putting together this plan for the following week, you'll see that it becomes a habit, right? So, but it's a sticky habit at this point. It's not just a habit that you're just gonna throw out the window. So that's usually my morning. So that's between like 5 and like 7:45-ish. That's kind of what I do. And then while I was looking for my jobs, I call myself a job search executive, right? I mean, I was going for these leadership roles, and for me, being an executive is what I know. And so it's like, okay, let me just call myself a job search executive. So what did that mean for me? So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning, it was super focused work. Like I did not open up my LinkedIn. I did not open up Slack, none of that. I was just applying for jobs. That's it, right? And in the afternoons, it was all about working on my personal brand. As Jan knows, before January, I was rarely ever on LinkedIn, and she was the one that just kept pushing me to get more stuff out there on LinkedIn. So I, worked up this, this courage to build my own website, and I was tinkering with all of these different projects. Again, stuff that I was working to build my brand, but to also be able to showcase this to the, people hiring, right? Like, hey, look, these are the things that I can do. So all
Right.
afternoon.
Because, and what's interesting about that is because she scheduled the time to build a website, to write blogs, to, publish on LinkedIn, and that sort of thing, then she had something to show her thought leadership, right? And without those artifacts, then you're just sort of talking, right? And you're speaking to it. And it's different when you say, oh yeah, here's my website. Oh yeah, here are some blogs I've written, right? And it's because she scheduled the time proactively and focused on it.
Yeah, and that's the key word. It's the focus, right? I mean, you can schedule the time, but it's very easy to get distracted. So that means, closing your calendar, closing your chats, right? All of these things, and you're just focused on that work only. And then Tuesday and Thursday, it was just heavy networking. I really didn't do any of the quote unquote job search activities, other than just networking. And it wasn't necessarily networking with people that had already put job recs out on LinkedIn and all of these other places. It was literally like talking to people and understanding the roles that they were playing within those companies. Even if I wasn't interested in working at that particular company, it was just, making those connections, right? And just talking through things. So it was literally just that. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I devoted time to doing that. And then for relationships, I call myself networking beast, And this was basically all the networking that I was doing in person, right? So like Tuesday, Thursday, the networking stuff all were happening like via Zoom or like in communities on LinkedIn. But these are networking events that I'm either attending in person, like the SoCalX events, making time to go, get some coffee with some friends during the week, right? Just building those relationships. My parents are, they live close by, but I used to not see them very often, believe it or not. And so now I schedule time just to go have lunch with my dad, just hang out with my mom. And so doing stuff like that. And of course, kids just take over your lives, as, parents usually know. And, but being able to schedule, again, those networking events, right, in person, that's really key. And at the end of the week, you're, again, going back and assessing what's working and what's not. But setting these 3 alarms kind of keeps you motivated to achieving the best you in each of these categories. And again, it's all about becoming this new identity, right? As opposed to just changing a habit that's not working. So yeah, so just going further.
Right. So I was talking and then I was on mute. So so just in terms of the types of goals you might generate under these different types of alarms, kind of what he refers to as the 3 alarms, so that you were literally jolted into, yes, I'm going to focus on this now. When, for healthy self, then what kinds of goals or things you might want to incorporate that are physical or mental health, for, oh, we didn't mean to have ones here. Oh, well, they're all number 1, right? But in any event, so be your own best boss, thinking about, this is where it's key, thinking about the 20% of the tasks that will get you 80% done. Right. And that's in the same idea of like what you need to prioritize, right? What's the most important thing? So if you're going to have this period in a, depending upon how you need to set up your schedule, and what Divya is doing with her schedule now, that she's her 2nd week into a role is different. And she's created a different name alarm. She's not the job search executive. What do you call yourself now, Divya? It's
tech, yeah. Tech genius or something like that.
Yeah, tech superstar, I think is what it is.
Yeah,
because right now what she's doing is focusing on learning all the tech stack, right? So she has called that alarm now, not job search executive, but she's changed it to tech superstar, because that's her identity while she's getting up to speed, right? So when you think about your identity, when you think about what you're going to do, what key things you need to do in each of these periods, when you're putting that alarm bell on, what do you want to prioritize? What are the key things that if you only did one thing today in that category, what would it be? Just one thing, right? What would that be? Get that done first, and then you can check that off, and then you can have that as your win, right? So that's kind of where we wanted to kind of orient you for the discussion today, and getting you thinking about that. And we wanted to set you up with some breakout questions then. Which legs of the stool are currently out of balance for you, right? Do you have something that's out of balance? What are some things you can do incrementally to rebalance? And what might be, this is optional, but what might be a creative new name for your 3 alarms or your legs of the stool? So that's what we want to have you discuss in the breakout sessions.
Oh, well, I didn't even have a chance to say proper goodbyes.
Well, now you can say hello to them in Slack, and they'll be back over. They'll be back over. That always happens, where someone will try to like make the message go away, and instead they sometimes actually leave the whole Zoom because they just hit leave.
No, that's exactly what I did. I was like, oh wait, let me just dismiss the message for a second. No, I'm out.
Nope, I guess I'll be jumping back to the main room. Yeah. But well, good. How are things with the conversation? Tell me more about about what,
It was great, actually. The time flew by. I mean, we could have kept going for another hour. It was good. Just sharing stories, sharing ideas. We actually didn't even use some of the prompts, but we had a great conversation.
well, they're there for you if you're not sure where to go with the discussion.
There's Lawrence. I was saying Lawrence just left us. He's mid talking.
I did. Yeah. I was
think
just
he
saying to
clicked the
Jan,
wrong
I'm like,
button.
I was in the middle of talking with Justin and Cynthia. The thing came up and I was like, oh, I'll just dismiss it. Nope, I'm out. Yeah.
It's the allure of the red button.
Yeah.
So what kinds of insights came up? What kinds of things came up for folks?
I'll jump in. Jan, thank you so much for having this and hosting this. This is my first time, but one of my
good.
girlfriends that I used to work with, she's like, you've absolutely got to get on these meetings. So just from having the opportunity to go in the breakout rooms, it was like great. And just seeing that you're not alone, and so many of us are struggling with different things right now. You know, it's, and like you said, it is a balance, because I'm a workaholic, and I'm telling you, I was working 12, 14 hours a day. And then, you know, before I got laid off, and it's like, now, oh my God, what am I going to do? And now I'm like feverishly trying to find a new position, but I've almost got to like stop myself from, I can be on the computer like all day long, and
Yep.
that's not healthy at all. So,
You know, I love that you brought all of that up. Just starting, first of all, you're not alone, and that is exactly what community is good for. And I want you to join the Slack community. When you were speaking, I put the links to everything over in the chat, because
Thank
we're all
you.
here for each other. You know, in Slack is 24/7, right? There's always someone awake, because it's a global community. But the other thing too about what you just said, LJ, is that, you know, because I tend to be a workaholic too. Like, I would probably never get off my computer if I was not married to a guy who needs and has better work-life balance than me. And I want to stay married to him. So I do close up the computer. But you know, that is the thing, is like, you're somehow feeling like it's never enough, when in fact, there are some things that are enough. And if you put that 80-20 rule to it, if you think about what are the key things I need to get done today, you know, for this area, right? And that's what I love too about the schedule that Divya put together for her job search, and the schedule she's putting together now as she's getting into her first month of the job, right? Because it's like, if you are making progress towards key things, you can close up the computer. You can go out for that walk and take care of yourself and those things too. So I thank you so much for speaking up, LJ. Trevor, you wanted to share too?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of bounce off of what LJ was saying, like, you're not alone. Like that post I mentioned in the beginning, the mind, like, one thing that proved to me is that I wasn't alone. A lot of people are struggling right now. A lot of people are having a hard time. A lot of people, some of them are in this call with us. Like my whole breakout group was all job seekers, and we were all just kind of helping each other out and talking about, you know, how we could make our days better and, you know, get to a healthier place. So, you know, what I urge everyone here to do, which this group has helped me a lot, is connect with people, is to feel like you're less alone, and to have more assistance. And
we have the collaboration groups. And all it is a self-organized collaboration group. So if everyone that was just in that breakout group wants to go and create a collaboration group, we've got a way to help facilitate you do that. Or you can just do it and connect in Slack, or maybe you're already in a collaboration group. Feel free to join those, whether you're job seeking in your first 6 months of a role or 6 months and greater. We have that for all 3 stages, and for CSMs and CS leaders. Justin.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. But yeah, so we didn't do a good job by documenting what we talked about, but we did have a very lively conversation that was very, very well received by the 3 of us. I think your note taker was in there, so hopefully you can catch it.
Okay, maybe.
But either way, we did kind of take the 3: wealth, health, and relationship. And I shared kind of my breakdown of that, which is more physical, mental, emotional. Like, that's kind of how I think of that. And it correlates very similar to those. And we spent time talking about the mental component of it. And and it maybe ties back to exactly how I think you originally thought this was going to be, Jan, which was like, you have to plan your day in your calendar to mentally either disconnect from work so you can spend time with your friends and family, or if you're in job search right now, you still need to take and work on business type things to keep your brain, fresh and sharp. So leveraging calendar utilization, even though like coming to events like this or signing up for a different webinar, like that'll keep you sharp and keep your brain in the business mindset as you're going through your transition. So for us, it was physical, mental, emotional, and being able to tie that back to whether it be, work-life balance or work, right? And just kind of sharing those aspects of it.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's great. Any other things that came up, any insights or nuggets that you put in the notes, but maybe we should share here? Yeah, Virginia.
So I'll share. Our group talked about the sort of short leg on our stool being health, and how that starts to chip away at the other two aspects. Like when you're not taking care of yourself, do you have the energy to really engage in the other two? And that led to a really nice conversation on prioritization and boundaries. Thank you to the team for telling me I need to go make some people reschedule some things that people have pushed onto my calendar. But talking about, sort of what we just talked about with, mental versus emotional and physical, like you have to make sure that you keep things aligned, but you also have to make sure that there aren't knock-on effects. Like when you let one sort of slide, it will sort of domino into the other items. So we talked about taking time, going for walks, making sure that you have the bandwidth at the end of your day to sort of shut down and go spend time with family to recharge yourself, things like that. So seeing that they're very intertwined, but that letting one kind of go out of control impacts the other ones.
Mm-hmm. And Tammy, what was the link that you just shared, the resource?
Well, one example of the wheel of life exercise I used to run with teams, which is basically you can't flex everywhere, and you can use this exercise, which I reminded myself as this conversation is happening that I should do again. You revisit it, and where do you want to flex? Where do you want to point your energy towards, and what's going to give, and being okay with that, doing it intentionally.
Nice. All right, Kathy, you're going to close us out here.
Okay. Yeah, I was in the same group as Virginia, and one of the things that we talked about regarding our calendars is when other people see something on our calendars and they're like, oh, that's not that important for them, I'll just schedule over it and make them come. And so you're not only sort of doing battle with your old self, you're doing battle with other people, and that's hard, especially if they outrank you. So
right, how do you deal with that, right? Like when your boss says I'm going to be more important than this other thing that you have scheduled,
right?
And that's an important thing to discuss with them, though, right? And say, look, I've put this doesn't look like real time, but in fact I'm working on these projects that are real and need to be able to make some impact on it. But if this is a very important meeting for you, then we can certainly do it. They are your boss. But but at the same time, if they keep doing that over and over, then you have to say, like, look, this is not, I'm not making progress on this project that we've agreed I should be making progress on, because you're actually scheduling over my time to do it, right? And sometimes you gotta speak freely, even if judiciously. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been a great day. It was just what I needed, and I hope it's what you needed too. We will be back next week. Cynthia and I are back next week. We're going to be talking about building a ROI calculator for your customers. How your customers think of the ROI of your product and how they're getting ROI. How do you evaluate that? So I think it's going to be a great session. please come and join us. And then the week after that, we've got Justin coming and doing a co-leading a session with us. And then we're going to have a couple that are focusing specifically on job search and hiring. So depending upon if you're hiring or if you're doing the job searching, we'll have a couple sessions on that as well. So looking forward to it, and I'll get all of the things updated on our website, which is where you can find everything. Okay, see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.